Today's Pokemon video is going to cover my opinions and thoughts on how Pokemon needs to change. There are many things that need to change about Pokemon that I'm going to be summarizing and covering in today's video. So, sign in, sit right down, get ready to like and share, because I would like a lot of people to participate in this discussion. Let's get into what needs to change about Pokemon. So yeah, you heard it right, Pokemon needs to change. What a shock. In my opinion, Pokemon has become as stagnant and still as Call of Duty. In fact, more so than ever. The thing about Pokemon Sword and Shield is that it is very similar to every other type of game out there. Pokemon tried to do something different here and there. Every new generation of games, there was some type of new ability system, new item system, a gimmick added here or there, maybe a deeper story, and Game Freak really felt out the situation and said, yeah, that was good, or back to the drawing board. In the Generation 5 Black and White, a very story-driven type of game, and added several game mechanics that were nice. The story, the deep lore-rich, questioning story that made you think things through, it didn't stay with the series. We got lighter, the I'm a supervillain type of situation with Lysander, you know, like, come on, man. You're really basically going to be doing what Generation 4's guy was doing, except making the world in your own image, and oh, wait, that's exactly what the Generation 4 guy, Cyrus, was going to do anyways. I believe that Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon were the deviations from the Call of Duty formula. People didn't like that as much, and now we have Sword and Shield, and people are somewhat okay with that. But Sword and Shield stirred up an extremely large controversy and a lot of problems for the more senior players of Pokemon. A lot of people would argue these points and say, well, it doesn't matter as long as kids are having fun, and yeah, okay, sure, you're right. It's not as if these game companies do not recognize that they need to change. It's just a lot of the fandoms will either stick to their guns and say, absolutely not, I will buy this game series time and time again, no matter how much the series is stagnant and broken, or they will say, no, I'm bored with this game. I'm bored of doing the same thing over and over. This series will die. With Pokemon being very similar to Call of Duty now, I look at Pokemon Sword and Shield and I try to figure out what I'm supposed to do at the end game. After I beat the game, what exactly am I to do other than to go into a field, find some raids, and capture some maybe perfect Pokemon, arguably perfect Pokemon, and catch them all again. Perhaps find a shiny Pokemon. Shiny hunting is a massive thing in Pokemon. But I also feel like it wouldn't be as massive if there was a much bigger endgame to the series. In Sword and Shield, I go to the field, I get those Pokemon, and then I'm just done. I'm bored, I'm tired of it, it's not fun anymore. I mean, you have these amazing ultimate attacks in these raids, and they do a tiny chunk of damage to the raid boss. Ah, really? It looked like I set off a nuclear explosion, but it seemed like a mosquito bite to you. The catch-em-all thing is kind of redundant as well, because not only do we not have all the Pokemon in Pokemon Sword and Shield yet, we also have the issues of Pokemon Home and storage transfer system that they have in place. And basically, you have to not only pay for Nintendo Online, but you also have to pay for the transfer services. So it ends up being around $20 to $30 just to be able to transfer all your Pokemon all the way from Generation 3 to current generations. And you could use the transfer to go to the eShop versions of Generation 1 and 2 and transfer those as well. And that's cool. You use Pokemon Bank, Pokemon Home, and it's a very convoluted transfer tree. It works, but you have to pay $30 to do that, instead of just having a comprehensive Pokemon game where you have all the Pokemon in it and you're able to just go and catch them all. That would be a nice end game, but that in itself would also be boring. I would compare that to playing Call of Duty and having a list of challenges, achievements. If you remember, there used to be camouflages that you would have to unlock, right? So one of the challenges was always to get X number of headshots. So catching them all would be very similar to getting a certain amount of headshots with an M16A1. and then you would move on to the M16A4 after you got whatever camouflage you were after. That's very grindy. That's very boring. The same thing could be said about Destiny 2. People really dislike how much of a grind there is. You go into a raid in Destiny 2 and you go and defeat this boss. Maybe it's Riven, and it takes you a long time. You're talking about an hour, maybe 2 hours of time, and you're not even guaranteed what you need. It's a big grind. They say, sorry, you better do the raid again, and hopefully this time you'll get that exotic you're after. So that sucks, because that's, instead of a guaranteed drop, a guaranteed reward, it is forcing you to play the game longer and try to get you to play their game instead of playing a different game. Do I think Destiny is a good game? Do I think Call of Duty is a good game? Absolutely. I think they have their merits. I think they have their position. I'm not trying to compare first-person shooters to Pokemon, which is absolutely not. I only use the Call of Duty comparison because Call of Duty is a very stagnant series that's been around for a very long time, and you just do the same thing over and over again, just like in Pokemon. In Pokemon, I would have to grind it out to get all of the Pokemon to capture them all, making it a very redundant statement. It would just force me to play the game much longer. It is not a meaningful end game at all. What do I get when I catch them all? Oh, I get something that helps me to get more shiny Pokemon. Oh, wow, yay. For people who are not shiny hunters, they don't care about that. I get excited when a shiny Pokemon pops up, but I have about 400 or 500 of them on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon cartridge. Okay, so it's not as if I'm without. It's not as if I don't have tons of shiny Pokemon anyways, because I absolutely do. Basically, they're saying that the end game is this. You can get all the Pokemon, you get a nice reward, and then you can go shiny hunting for Pokemon that have a slightly different color palette. That's your end game. That's your grind. You encountered 1,000 versions of this Pokemon that was blue. Now you encounter a shiny one on the 1,001 encounter, and you might say, oh, it's just not that much. Oh, it's not that hard. It's just like an hour and a half of work, and all to get a Pokemon that is a different color. That's your end game. That's your end game. Not a challenging dungeon filled with NPCs with level 90 and 100 Pokemon. And I'm not talking about Battle Tower either. I'm talking about an end game where you actually have places to go. You guys remember in Generation 2, the end game was that you beat the Elite Four, and then a whole new area opened up. You got to go back to Kanto, get all the gym badges again, and then you got to fight a reprised version of the Elite Four. And then Mount Silver opened up, and you got to go explore Mount Silver and challenge Red, one of the most elite trainers of the game. And they had other things like Battle Tower in Generation 2. They had the trainer house. They had things like that. But that end game was there, and once you were done with that was it. The main game itself might have taken you 6 to 8 hours, maybe, if you knew what you were doing. But if you were really doing side things, catching a ton of Pokemon, it could have easily taken you 10 to 20 hours, and then you unlock this whole nother section, this whole nother area for you to go and visit, and it was glorious. After that, most generations didn't do stuff like that. They fell back on making the main game itself more beefy and bigger, and gave it stuff to do within the main version of the game, and that's fine. That's fine. But after a number of times of doing the same exact thing, getting gym badges, beating the Elite Four, catching them all, getting some reward to help me find more shiny Pokemon, it does get very old and feel like a grind fest, because I did it already. Can you not come up with a method to transfer my trainer ID to show that I did this in Generation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Can we not get that? Pokemon needs to change for those who are not into the online battle scene. I would like to call them PvE players. I'm a PvE player. I don't play online. I do not go to tournaments. I don't do anything like that. I like to play the core game itself. I would like to have side story experiences added in. I would like this DLC that is coming to be very successful, because it feels like it would give meaningful things to do within the game besides beating the game and going to a field to find more raids, to find more Pokemon, to complete a dex, to get a shiny charm that I don't even care about. It prevents me from playing the game. There's no point. Once I'm done with Pokemon Sword and Shield, once I've explored everything in it, there is no point for me to continue playing that game. None. Zero. Zilch. I caught them all. I got the shiny Pokemon I wanted. What is there left to do? What is there left to do for somebody who literally shiny hunts every Pokemon that they ever wanted in the game? And they caught them all. what is there left to do in the core game itself other than playing online with other people? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What are you going to do? Go walk around the field that you've already been walking around for, countless hours looking for these Pokemon? No, you're not going to do that. You can go to this area that looks nice. Okay, it looks nice. Now what? There's nothing else to do. So I feel that Pokemon needs more things to do in the PvE activities, and it needs to focus on this DLC. And this DLC needs to work out very, very well. Otherwise, it's going to remain a stagnant series that's just going to continuously and slowly reintroduce the Pokemon that we're missing to give you some sort of lifeline. Oh, here's 200 more Pokemon for you to catch again. You remember these Generation 2 and 3 Pokemon that didn't make it in. Why don't you go catch your favorite and use it now? And while we're on that, let's just bring up the fact that introducing the Pokemon that were cut back into the game makes it basically a slap in the face to those who were defending the cut and saying that, okay, these Pokemon are gone, now it gives us time to experiment with newer Pokemon, and it changes the meta of battling online. It changes the end game and makes all kinds of viable options. And then the developer said, nope, we're gonna just add them in later on, and now your meta is completely shifted and changed back to these overpowered Pokemon that are going to be re-added in. Is that going to change the end game? Here's 200 more Pokemon, go ahead and catch them. Is that going to change the end game? The DLC, if it is not extensive with many unique and side stories and places to explore, will end up being a one and done. Here's this new dungeon, go get these Regirocks or go get these legendary birds from Kanto, and you're finished. And that's not at all what I want to see out of the new Pokemon series, because that's very similar to Call of Duty. Also, Call of Duty introduces these DLCs. Here's some new guns, here's a few new areas, have fun, and then that's it, it's done. Okay, looks very, very similar, feels very, very similar. Maybe I'm just too cynical. This was a very long rant that I did on Pokemon, but I feel like it needed to be said. I feel like I had to get it off my chest because it's exactly how I feel. And if you feel that way, I hope that you don't get to the point where I am, where I'm almost completely burnt out on the series as a whole. I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. You can go ahead and click subscribe, stay up to date with my videos, and as always, good gaming, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.